for legislators and senators. Next year, 17, will be the municipal elections. The question for during the study commission can go on any of those in the election cycle. Again, questions with election cycle, you can talk to your county election board. Different menu of taxes? No. You still have the same menu of taxes. You have a property tax, an earned income tax, the other 511 taxes. You have those taxes. The only difference is you can change the rates. So under 511, basically, there are exceptions to this, there's a 1% earned income tax. Normally it's shared half with the municipality, half with the school district. You could raise that rate.
Do you have to?
Excuse me?
Do you have to?
No. No.
So your taxes could stay the same?
Theoretically, yes. But the charter could raise them. The charter could...
Not without the voters' approval though, right?
Yes and no. That's what I was just getting into. You beat me to that. If the charter says that you need the voter approval, they can't be raised unless they come back to you. You could do one of two things here. You could just turn it over to the governing body that you created to raise taxes as they need, or you could give them that they could go up a certain percentage without coming back to you. Anything over that, they have to come back to you. So your charter would spell out how that would work. But you can't go from an earned income tax to a personal income tax. Personal income tax is what we pay the state. So even though you may want to, you think it's fair or whatever, you can't do it. Municipalities have the ability to determine how to collect property taxes and who will collect them. I.e., you may, in your charter, do away with your elected tax collector. You could have a municipality collect it internally. As far as the earned income tax, though, you cannot do that. There is state law that's created the Elk County Tax Collection Bureau. It's not part of the county. It's just called, under the law, countywide bureaus. So that is spelled out. So they would still collect an earned income tax. Again, who sets tax rates for home rule? We just got into answering that question. Depends. And again, the charter allows the governing body to set the rate or requires the referendum. Does it change the process for bidding? Again, home rule municipalities can make changes to the procurement process through the charter. It can remain the same as the municipal codes. Again, the bidding laws under Pennsylvania law basically are under our codes. They're not a freestanding, all-encompassing, although each of the codes says the same thing. So the bidding requirement right now is over $19,400, I think the number is. You know, you have to go out and bid for it, whether you're in a township, a borough, or a city. But it's not in a freestanding act, it's in each of the individual codes. Removal of elected official from office? No. Again, 2 court cases. If you want to remove an individual, a supervisor who's sitting today and or a council person, which we'll call them that under a home rule charter, you have to follow the Constitution. 2 cases, both Supreme Court. One was the petition recall of Reese, Supreme Court, and this was in a home rule municipality. Actually, it's a home rule township up in Luzerne County, home rule second-class township in Luzerne County, and the state said, state Supreme Court said, you can't follow your charter. Their charter spelled out a provision of how to remove their councilman. And the court said no. There's a state law, i.e. the state constitution says how you remove elected officials, whether they're locally elected or at the state level, and you have to follow. And it references Article 6, Section 7 of the Constitution of how it has to be done. There also was a Supreme Court case that followed Reese that dealt with specifically a township of the second class under the code, and the law said, or the Supreme Court said the same thing with that one. Recall must follow the Constitution. Charges brought by the House, tried in the Senate. Recall requires 2/3 majority in the Senate. It's very difficult to have an elected official, whether it's at the township level, state level, recall. Will a home rule charter stop? And this is in here, and it's not, I'm getting on one side or the other, but it's a question we get, and you already brought up about your injection wells under FERC, which is federal jurisdiction. And the answer is no at this time. Are prohibited from passing ordinances, supersede federal or state law. 2 court cases, one outside of Pennsylvania. I don't know if that's pronounced Sweppy versus Mora County. The federal court said the federal law is supreme to local ordinances. Then the Penn Ridge Coal versus Blaine Township in 2009, the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Pennsylvania said there that the ordinance was invalid and that the state law was supreme. Also in the Blaine Township case, there was a provision that the other side was awarded court costs and damages.
Excuse me. Do you know if those were constitutional or were they just zoning ordinances?
Excuse me, I didn't hear the last part of that.
Did you know if those 2 ordinances that were overturned were they zoning ordinances or constitutional ordinances?
In the New Mexico case, that was, I gotta go back into my memory. That was an issue where the county created a home rule charter for the county in New Mexico, and there the federal court said that the municipality did not have the power to supersede the federal government or the New Mexico statutes. So I don't know if that was actually a zoning case, but it was dealing with their home rule law that they have there, which is very similar to ours. The Penn Ridge Coal in Blaine Township, actually there was 2 cases with that one. Again, it was over, I think the coal one was zoning, the second one was a home rule in Blaine. Literally it was this ordinance, I take that back. First one wasn't zoning, the first one was the ordinance, the corporation ordinance that said there's corporations cannot come into the municipality unless it's a like family corporation, a farm that would incorporate under the state laws. The federal judge threw that out, saying that you cannot do that under the federal constitution and laws. And then the second one was that I don't have up here, dealt with Blaine Township also. They tried to use the same argument to keep natural gas drilling out, and the federal judge said no. You know, they referenced this one. And then the second one is when she, I think it's a she, awarded damages. But neither one were necessarily zoning.
Any of them still in court?
Who asked the question? Sir?
Are any of them still in court? They were
No,
appealed?
both of them have been settled and out of court. They're done. Matter of fact, this one here, the coal one, was 2009, I think. The gas one was 2012. And they're settled, and Blaine Township did not appeal either one of them higher than the U.S. District Court. It didn't go to the 3rd Court of Appeals. Municipalities do not have the authority to enact legislation in defiance of the Constitution, statute. Again, here's another one with the Commonwealth Office of Attorney General, Corbett versus East Brunswick Township. this gets back to you, ma'am, in the front, when you asked about the acre. That case there deals with the acre law, where a township tried to exclude a CAFO. That's a no, it's not a dump. They're concentrated animal feeding operations. I can remember what that one says. They tried to exclude them through an ordinance. It went to Corbett, who was the Attorney General at the time. Their review said, no, you're superseding the state law. East Brunswick Township appealed it to the courts, Commonwealth Court. Commonwealth Court upheld his interpretation and said that the township did not have the right to pass an ordinance that exceeded state laws. But that was under acre. What are the duties of the study commission? Again, remember, what I said is when you go to the polls, you're going to have two questions. One is, should we have the study? And the second one is about the commission. The commission is required to study the form of government of the municipality, which is second-class township in this case, to compare it with other available forms under the law and make recommendations. So you can look at like the borough code, city code, even the county code or whatever. You cannot say you want to go from a second-class township to a borough, because that's not what the question said. But you can look at them to see if they have things in their codes that you would want to put in your home rule charter. Then what you do is you make a and commission does all that, and then decides, yeah, we should move forward with a home rule charter. I hope I didn't. Oh, sorry. Then they make a recommendation whether or not to form whether you should form a new government and make it stronger, more accountable to the residents, or whether its operation could become more economical and efficient. And Section 2918 spells out that procedure. Excuse me. What may it recommend? Again, it depends on the question, and I don't know what the question actually says, but again, you can't go further than what the question says. I was giving this presentation one time, and one of the people in the group said, well, why can't we go borough? Well, that wasn't the question. So the law says you've got to stick to the question. Otherwise, the commissioners could be out there looking at everything and anything. And, you know, after a while, too much information gets to be overwhelming. Limits the commission to reviewing home rule, then it may only review the current form of government and home rule. But as I said, you can get information from other forms and put it into it. Are there minimum requirements for a home rule charter? Yes. Shall specify the number of members of the governing body, other elected offices. So, as I said earlier, if you didn't want to have a tax collector, you could do away with it. You're still going to have to collect your taxes, but you have to set up how that's going to be collected. Whether the elections are be at large or by district or a combination. Right now, townships of the second class, supervisors, 3 or 5, are elected at large. That means every one of you have the right to vote for, there's 3 of you guys, right? 3. Every one of you have the right to vote for 3. My township, I live in Lancaster County, I have 5 supervisors. I vote for all 5 when they come up for it. If it's by district, then you can only vote for that person in that district. So say you're going to have 5 councilmen, as we said to keep them separate here, and you separate in 5 districts, then District 1 will vote for theirs, District 2 theirs, and then way around. You can also have a combination of a hybrid of the two. You could say 3 are at by districts, so your township is broken into 3 districts, and 2 are at large. So that in that case, you would vote for actually 3 of the 5. The 1 district person that district you live in, and the 2 at large. Cost to switch. There is a cost. There will be a cost of the study. Traditional costs approved by the voters. The municipality, the township, is required to provide necessary and reasonable funding for it, the work of the study commission. And the cost varies upon the size of the municipality, the complexity of the charter being drafted. If you look at the home rule study book, which compares costs from 1972 to 1980 for your township, which I don't know the population, but small, it can range. Back then, it was anywhere up to a couple $1,000s. Has that changed? Probably. I can't tell you what it would cost. It depends, again, what you're looking at. It may be relatively cheap. The people who get elected do most of the work. You could get maybe a solicitor or attorney who donates his time, then the cost would be down. But again, that does vary. Again, and if you were the county looking at it, I would say your cost goes up. My county a few years ago looked at going home rule, and the cost for that study at that time, which was actually more than a few years ago, it was back in the 90s, was approaching $90,000. Now, I said, that's the county. The county's yeah, that's substantially different than yours. But if you look at the book, back in 72 to 80, even for counties, it didn't get up to that cost.
Grand Township, which is similar to what we would be doing, their budget was, I think, $1,500, and through in-kind and what the commission had done, the township ended up paying like $480, or around $500.
Yeah, and as I said, depends on a number of criteria that comes in. I mean, large costs a lot of times is the legal counsel. So if you get somebody who's going to volunteer their time to do it, you know, attorney that lives in your township that wants to vote time. If you're looking at other issues and get other type of consultants that come in, again, will those consultants donate their time or not? I can't answer that question. That's, again, when Lancaster County did it, that commission hired an attorney. That just jacked up the cost that was going through. But it varies. But just realize it could have a cost. And again, the township is responsible for funding that. How long must the meetings, study commission be advertised before a meeting is held? Are the advertising requirements the same as the township? Basically, yes, they are. Again, Sunshine Law is a state-wide statute. It does spell out what certain things have to be done. Our codes do have different requirements for different types of advertising before a meeting. They're basically all very similar. You must follow the same advertising as other agencies. You must deliberate and take action at the public meeting, the same as what the township does now. Time frame to complete the home rule, study, charter. The work must be within 18 months. There is a time period. It can't go on forever. It requires the report findings, recommendations to the citizens within 9 months of the date of its election. So the study commission is 2 weeks from now. The vote is how long it takes the county to certify it, and then the clock starts running. Because as I said earlier, you know, your first meeting has to be within 15 days, so the law is very specific on a time frame.
There's no minimum though, correct?
Minimum?
Basically, there's no minimum amount of time they have to get. I mean, I'm just saying, if they get it done in 2 months, what they need to do, that's fine, correct? As long as it gets certified by the county.
If you get it, yeah. The only thing that you would have a time period on that is that to get it on, if you voted yes in a couple weeks, as long as you get it done, if you want it on the November ballot, It's 13 weeks prior to the November date. Whatever 13 weeks is the end of August. So theoretically, really, that would be your minimum, maximum time.
So the 18 months is going by election date, by when you vote?
18, well, first of all, there's
Yeah,
two.
that's-
It's the 9 months. So if you would go, theoretically, after the election, whenever it's certified, then you have 9 months. At that point, you can ask for an extension if you want more time to get it on.
Okay, here's this question. What's the date after the 9 months? Is that an election day, or is that before an election day, or?
No, it's 9 months after the date. So it,
So is that when they vote
let's
on
just
it?
say May 1st. June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Somewhere around December 1st would be when that report has to be filed. Okay, it's after the November election.
Right.
So you would have it done by December. You would file the report. You would advertise it, assuming that you want a home rule charter. You would advertise it, do everything there. And theoretically, you have from December 1st until next April for it to be put on the ballot.
All right, so it was the April ballot then.
If you take the full 9 months.
Right, right.
Now, at 8 months from now, you're into this whatever, you could say, the commission could say, we need another 9 months. They are given 9 months. That isn't voted on. It's the commission saying, we need more time. They then, from the 9 months and 18 months from the beginning date, it is done, period, finished. Whatever that comes out to, then you still have to follow the election code to be on the next ballot. So, literally, as the gentleman said, you could get it done in time to get it on the 1st or on the November ballot for the vote on the charter itself. But if you don't get it, say instead of the end of August, they finish up in October or September, say in middle of September, then the election law says you can't get it on the ballot. So then you would go still till next April. It spells it out in the law, and it also, you have to go with your
Election cycle.
election cycle. Again, the additional 9 months, it's in 29, 21, that spells it out. Average time frame, again, it depends. I can't tell you that you will get it done by August. I can't tell you that it won't take you the 18 months. All I can tell you is you can't go longer than 18 months. That's the only thing I'm certain of. Again, also, if you're looking at an optional plan, those usually don't take as much time as the charter, but that's not what the question is, from what I understand. Again, it also gets into the complexity of the commission once they start working. If they want to totally revamp everything, it'll take longer than if you want to take a lot of stuff out of the township code as it's presently written and just change a few things. Again, the time period, as I said, the only thing I can guarantee you there, and I don't guarantee too much, is that 18 months, it's over. There were court cases back in the 70s when study commissions wanted to go more than 18 months, and the court said, no, law says 18, you're done. And that was the end of the question. And the 18 months, if you take the 18, it's research your options, obtain a consultant's thorough review, hold your public hearings, you do have to have public hearings, and then write the report. Okay, if somebody leaves, the remaining members of the study commission fill the vacancy. Originally, you vote on them. So say it's 9 members, you vote 9. I'm one of them. I live here, so I'm one of them. I put my name on. For some reason, I get sick. I got to go off. Now, it doesn't come back to you voters. The commission, the other 8, would pick the person. So, there is a mechanism so that it doesn't stop during the process and wait for another election to come up. Who reviews? Make sure it's a legal document. No state agency has oversight. Just recommend the commission retain an attorney and make sure that he or she reviews reports on the charter. Failure to do so could result in legal challenges as long if it's not in compliance with the laws. So if you put something in that's blatantly outlandish, somebody else, one of the citizens that doesn't want it, could bring challenge and say that the charter is invalid. So although there's no state agency that will look at it, even if you contact the Department of Community and Economic Development, they will not review it for you. They will tell you, same as I'm telling you, you should have legal counsel look over what that document says. Are they held to any form of liability? Commissioners are subject to the ethics law. Again, that's a statewide law, so you have to be in compliance with that. You have to be in compliance with the campaign finance law that's out there in documents. So those two things have to be met. They take the oath of office for the Constitution of the U.S. and Pennsylvania to perform their duties. So really, that is the liability that they're put to. Again, it's no different than when you elect supervisors, or if you go through the home rule and you elect down the road home or councilmen, as we're calling them, they follow the same things. These people that you're electing to the Home Rule Study Commission are not government officials. They don't have any government authority. They're, if they want to be on the council later, they're going to have to run the same as everybody else. They have to take the oath, and follow these laws because they're being put in a position that needs to be forthright in what goes on there. That is it. So you can't say, well, we're going to point Elam Her to this because we know that he's on our side and he's going to do vote for this. I can't do that if I'm elected because the Home Rule Study Commission only forms the charter. They're not elected officials. Home Rule Charter, referendums handled. Amendments to the charter may be initiated by a citizen petition or the action of the governing body. Process for placing study commission. So, you form the charter. It's voted on. You're in it. Your charter will spell out how amendments are coming to the Home Rule Charter. You can put in there that everything comes back as far as ordinances comes back. But from the charter itself, if you want to amend it, the governing body cannot amend the charter. It has to come back to you. So, simple thing. Your charter spells out you're going to have 5, or let's go the opposite way. You have 9 councilmen. You think that you should only have 5. Supervisors can't pass or councilmen can't pass an ordinance to take it back. That has to come back to you, the voters, because it is an amendment to the charter. That's different than an ordinance. The ordinance can be either or. Changes to administration or the governing process may provide for initiative or referendum, and or as provided in the charter, and should include the rules of how that's going to be provisions will work.
I have a question. That's only if they want to change the second class code, right? If they want to make a change to the second class code, they don't have to do that, correct?
Excuse me, I'm not following.
I'm just saying, everything that you went over up here, if it's a change to the second class code, that's okay, as long as it's within the law, correct?
Changes to the code itself have to go through the legislature.
So we can't modify that at all.
No, you cannot modify the township code. The supervisors who are sitting here today follow the township code.
What I'm saying is, if we keep the township code as a big part
Mhm.
of our charter, that's fine. We don't have